Hey, welcome back to What Jack has made. In this video, I'm going to be going over my custom block component parser function and how you can convert Gutenberg blocks into Gatsby React components. So in the previous video, I covered how we would render content from posts into just, standard native HTML elements. But in this video, I'm going to be covering how we convert those blocks that we created in Gutenberg using the ACF Pro plugin into actual React components, passing the data attributes as props. So I'll first go over my component parser function. So this essentially imports all of the blocks that we had created in our WordPress environment, except I've created these as React components. I then assign each component as a key and value within a component's object. I've commented out the rest of the components so we can just focus on the intro one for now. I then have a couple of functions which help sanitize and check that the objects are valid objects before trying to return them as components. And then I have the component parser function itself. So essentially what the component parser function does is it accepts props, which would be an array of blocks. So this is normally done using the page template and the component parser function, which we're looking at now, and passing in the page context blocks as a content prop. So that gets destructured immediately. And then if there's no content available, don't do anything. If there is content available, make sure that they have a name. If they don't, remove them from the array. If we still have objects available, then we'll loop through each one and populate each component with the props that we find from our ACF fields and return the component itself. So this can seem a bit overwhelming at first, but I'll show you an example using the intro block. But before we do that, we first want to actually query the intro block. So I've gone ahead and created a template literal string, which is intro block, where we're saying on WordPress ACF intro block, get the name of the block and the intro fields under the ACF field group. Now the reason we're using intro fields and not just ACF is because when we start querying multiple blocks, we'll encounter an error where it says you don't have a unique field group name for these data attributes. And to get around that, you can give it a naming convention of your choice. So what we're doing is we're saying intro fields, and if we had a hero block, we would have hero fields. And in the component parser function, we're replacing that key intro fields or hero fields as data and deleting the original key. It's a little hack that I've had to do for now, but it seems to work. And then what we're doing is we're bringing in this intro block template into our blocks query for our pages. So if I go ahead and run this, I can also show you what that would look like in our graphical interface. So actually that'll take a second to boot up while the Gatsby environment's booting up too. So now that has finished starting up, I'll show you what the query would look like in our graphical interface. So when we query all the pages and look for the intro block, you can see we get returned the information in this would be the about page, and that would be the home page. Within here we have access to get in the subheading, heading, and content, and then bringing that out as a JSON payload. And now when we go to our about page, as you can see, we have the about page rendering the intro block with the content that we're populating in. So the intro component has props, and as you can see, the content, the subheading, and heading prop all populate the component, which is coming from our GraphQL query. There are other attributes available in the props which are specific to case studies. So this is essentially what's being rendered out for us. If we have a look at the page and look at our console, you'll see I'm logging the props that we have available to us in our component, which is content, heading, index, subheading, and undefined for theme. But if you focus on these 4 keys, you'll see that they're all provided by our component parser. So we have index, key, theme, which is undefined, and then the component data, which is spread. And this component data is essentially brought in from our ACF props. So any ACF fields that we have for our blocks get passed in as props for our component, and we can render the React component based on the data available in WordPress. So we'll go ahead and actually have a go at creating another component. This might break some stuff because I haven't refactored some of the components from my old setup. So we're enabling the row component, but we'll also have to go into our create pages application and create our own row block template. So we'll go into our GraphQL schema and create the query. So we're looking at the row block and looking under ACF, we have access to media, content, and link. And as media is a field group, we have to query fields underneath the media group itself. And you can see we're getting some new objects returned to us in our block array. So what we can do is we can go ahead and copy this and drop it into our template. Now, the indentation isn't quite right here. That's close enough. So we'll go ahead and grab this naming convention just to keep everything consistent, and we'll call it row fields. And then we can go ahead and bring the row block in and use it under blocks. So we'll need to restart our development environment just so that we can start querying the row block. And while that's happening, we can go and have a look at the row component itself. So this one's quite an old setup I had. It's querying from data, but this time we'll just want to query it straight from props. So we'll bring that down, put props in there, and instantly destructure it from props. So media. Okay, so media is probably going to break. Yeah, media is going to definitely break. We'll comment out the media functions for now because they're not going to work straight off the bat. Let's have a look anywhere else it's referenced. Yeah, that should hopefully be okay. So if we go back to our page, give it a refresh. Okay, getting some errors. I want to see that error. So I think if we remove this, we should hopefully get something. Okay, we're getting errors, but Gatsby seems to be jumping between error mode and non-error mode. Let me see what happens when I go. Ooh, the home page. Okay. So prepare content. I'm not too fussed about that. We can pass that as content. So parse HTML. And then we can import the parse HTML function. Media URL is not defined. Okay, that's fine. Image loader is not defined. We're not even calling that. Okay, let's just remove that altogether for now. Okay, now we should get the rows. Nope. So what is going on? So if we look in our component parser, rows, we can console to have a look at what content we're getting. So we're getting the blocks, but we haven't got any names. So ACF doesn't, we're not getting the ACF name, so it doesn't know to reference the row component. So we need to bring in the name field, give it a restart. So the issue is when our component parser is looping over each block available, it doesn't get the ACF row name, so it doesn't know to bring in the row component. If we're not bringing in the row component, it's not going to render the row component. So this should fix it. So Gatsby is just finishing up, so we should have access to our row component now that we've fixed the name convention. Just finishing the build, we go to our local host. It's done, so let's give it a refresh. And we have our rows. Obviously the media isn't displaying right now, but we can access the props and have a tinker with that. You can see that it's converting the HTML content to actual HTML elements. And on the home page, well, that's broken, but the home page should have stuff too. Cool. And now I will need to do the same for all of the remaining 8 components, but as soon as that's done, we can jump into the next video.